Chapter 4. It was a truly strange sight, to be sure. Captain Bonnie saw dozens upon dozens of small round treadmills. Humans clad in black bodysuits and secured to mechanical arms around their waists held various equipment. Some held white-painted weapons, others held poles, others held what appeared to be tools, and every human was masked. Beyond them were rows of seats in front of a blank screen. Off to one side was a half-square set against a wall, at just over waist height, with numerous seats and a machine shaped vaguely like a human steadily serving glasses to seated patrons. Against a distant wall there laid equipment that, if unfamiliar in its design, it was clearly intended for fitness, as humans were running on elongated treadmills, while others were lifting or pulling cables secured to heavy weights. It wasn't lost on Captain Bonnie that some of the humans she saw doing this were easily as large as the Lamison heavy marines that she recalled from her military days. This is indeed a formidable species. She eyed the smooth flesh of the humans engaged in body construction and inclined her head respectfully towards their efforts. But the confusion at the unfamiliar directly in front of her was more significant in her mind than the familiar at the distance. These are video game simulators. The bodysuits let people experience a virtual simulation of themselves. The treadmills rotate with the arm so they can go places in virtual worlds and experience games and adventures. Reginald explained and pointed to a human who stopped and jumped up and down in place. The black metal arm moved with him as he celebrated in place, holding his white-painted weapon up and down. That one is probably playing Angel Fall, a popular shooter where you wage virtual war against an alien invasion. He coughed into his hand and cleared his throat. Not that we worry about such things. They're only games. Adults play games? Isn't that supposed to stop in childhood for your species? Bonnie asked. Not really. Humans are allowed to enjoy whatever recreation they like for as long as they live, as long as it's within reason. I don't care for the war simulators myself. I like the pirate sims. Reginald chuckled as Bonnie cocked her head. The what? She asked and waited while he looked her up and down. It'll be uncomfortable, maybe, but I think we can rig you up. The standard time in these things is 8 days, or maybe we can rig something up. He rubbed his chin while he thought out loud. I'll call for an engineer. For now, why don't I show you one of our movies about this kind of thing first? That way you know what you're about to experience. Captain Archer gestured towards the red cushioned seat at the far end of the open deck. Please, go pick your seat. I'll see about the movie and have someone come see if you can be outfitted in our virtual reality gear. Captain Bonnie took a reticent step forward and then picked up her pace. The expression on the human's face felt somewhat warm, even inviting, even if it was strange to her. And so she did what he asked. The main character is played by Jonathan Deep, an actor from the 21st century by our calendar. So, it's a very old movie. The setting is from our late 17th and early 18th centuries, a few hundred years before the film was made. So, enjoy, Reginald said and sat himself down beside his counterpart as the noise began. Bonnie watched as the screen showed a filthy-looking human with gold earrings and a outlandish demeanor charm his way through large-breasted and often scantily clad human women with disinterest, until she saw the story shift into the action. You'll never chain us down. We'll chase the horizon to the bitter end, he shouted in defiance at the uniformed soldiers and their fine ships. Cannons blasted back and forth. The ones the films referred to as pirates fought in her eyes as valiantly as any Lamison marine, hand to hand and pistol to pistol, filthy, ragged, and hungry as if they were She let out a loud "Woo!" and began to stomp her feet as the pirates sailed away from the sinking ships of the oppressive uniformed soldiers at the climax of the film, and the main character stood there at the wheel of his ship as his first mate approached. "Where to now, Captain?" the dirty and gap-toothed pirate asked. "To the horizon, mate. To the horizon, and from there, wherever the hell we want. There be no one to say otherwise," Jonathan Death's character said, and as the ship sailed over the endless blue waters, beneath an endless blue sky towards a sun that looked like it could almost be reached if you sailed out far enough, the credits began to roll. Woo! 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 It wasn't just Captain Bonnie who made that noise, but most of her bridge. They neither noticed the way the humans stared at them, lifting masks or turning heads, and even rising from their workout equipment to look at the curious scene of the cheering Delamison bridge crew. "You liked, I take it?" Reginald asked, while desperately suppressing his laugh at their obvious enthusiasm. "Those? Those are pirates?" Bonnie exclaimed the question, and Reginald nodded. "Yes," he answered. "They once dominated the seas of our world, from one hemisphere to the other. Governments could barely combat them, and often employed them as independent mercenaries. Some were freed slaves, some were fortune seekers, others were desperate criminals, and others were criminals because they were desperate. Pirate ships took all comers, no matter where they came from, or who they were before setting foot on the ship. They even elected their captains by popular vote. I'm a bit of a pirate buff, you see," Captain Archer said, and that curious upturned gesture with his lips came back. "That's why I thought you were all a little piratey," he chuckled. "That's why I chose to call you Bonnie Red, after Annie Bonny and Mary Red, two women pirates of that era who were famous in their time." Captain Bonnie mentally grabbed the name given to her all the tighter. "There are other movies like this one?" she asked. "I have a few here, but to find most of them you'd have to find where the cultural exchange materials were shipped, or find another human ship that happens to have a few. Since Earth is still locked down, that's not really an option," he explained, and Bonnie didn't have to look at her bridge crew to know they were resolved on this as she was. Never in all my life did I see anything so perfectly represent my struggles. The life of the outliers and the ones who want to rein us in. And I don't even find it in my own species." Bonnie looked around at the humans who were still staring at her and her crew. Before she could say anything, Reginald asked her, "Now that you've gotten a look at the movie, we can show you some more. Or you can play the game. We use time expansion technology, so it will feel like you're in the simulator for a lot longer. Usually we just do it for about 8 hours in sim days. That's our standard vacation time. But since you're our guest, and this is your first time, we can set aside some sim use for your whole crew. A few hours out here can be a few months in there. You get to live out a pirate's life on the high seas. What do you say?" Without thinking, every Delamison tail began to switch back and forth, and they tilted their heads back and let out a thrill and excited "Woo!" "I'll make the arrangements right now," he promised when the noise finally died down.